Mallrats came out, the narrative completely flipped, and I was the whipping boy for a year. Like, ugh, this is what happens when you give these fucking indie film kids money. They make shit like this. So I was done. You know, the LA Times review of Mallrats said that if Sundance or the AFI ever offers a course on what not to do as a second movie, Mallrats should be at the heart of the curriculum. You could tell I didn't memorize it or anything. So it was, at that point, I was like, oh my God, like fucking, I took for granted what had happened with Clerks. Like, oh my God, they'll love us forever. Now I can do anything. I made a movie that they absolutely did not like, create shit all over it, no box office whatsoever and stuff. Clerks made $3 million on no more than 50 screens. Mallrats opened on 500 screens, topped out at like 2.1. So it was not like a disaster because the movie only cost $5 million, but fucking it was losing money. And I was so green in those days. I was like, do I have to pay that back? I don't have that kind of fucking money. So I had been thinking about Chasing Amy, a story about a guy who falls in love with a lesbian. And I had told Jim Jacks, who was our producer on Mallrats, that. And Clueless had just come out. So he goes, you should make that movie as a high school movie, which in one way was very progressive to be like, make a high school lesbian movie. But it didn't come from any sort of progressive idea. He was like, that's where the money is. Like that Clueless and shit. So there exists 6 scenes of a Chasing Amy that was written for high school characters. Then Mallrats comes out and tanks, and right then and there, I go into career survival mode. I gotta save my fucking career, man. Like fucking all that goodwill I had, gone out the window. I'm in a sophomore slump. I'm an example at this point. So I've got nothing to lose and nowhere to go but up. Like we reached the heights with Clerks and we came plummeting back to earth with fucking Mallrats. So I was in Mallrats and I made it. Joey was in it. Ben was in it. Jason was in it. I often refer to Mallrats as a $5 million casting call for Chasing Amy. Because that's where I got to know these people and stuff. Because of Joey, I met King as well. So slowly I collected a bunch of people that I was like, okay, I'm going to make another movie and it's going to matter. It's going to have something to say. It's, you know, obviously Holden is obsessed with having something to say. And that was me trying to constantly apologize for how pithy Mallrats is. Like Mallrats is a fun movie, but doesn't have a lot on its mind. It's got a big heart, but it doesn't really have a lot going on in its head and stuff. Chasing Amy was meant to be like, no. The guy who made Clerks, he's still here. And look what he did. He just wanted to make Mallrats for fun because that's the kind of movie he grew up watching. But watch this. Look what he could do with this. So I had something to prove. Ben had something to prove. He'd always been cast as like the big asshole in movies, whether it was in Days Confused or Mallrats or something like that. And he was the exact opposite in real life. He's a charming motherfucker. Yeah. One of the most charming, charismatic people I ever meet. And I was like, wow. Drive me home. Yeah. He loved fucking hanging out with King. Yeah, we would joke around in the car. Yeah. Yeah. Good dude. Guy too. Funny. Legit. One of the funniest people I've ever known. So I wanted him to play Holden. And I wanted Joey to play, you know, Alyssa Barr was written right for her and stuff, and based very much on Joey. Jason Lee, I wanted him, you know, even though he was the lead in Mallrats, I was like, this guy, I'd seen him act in Malcolm's movie. Malcolm made a movie called Drawing Flies. And Jason Lee gives this really dramatic performance in it, where I was like, I didn't know you were capable of this shit. So that made me write him the part that I did, the Banky part in Chasing Amy. So we had a deal with Miramax. We had just set up a deal, thank God, before Mallrats came out. We set up our overall deal with Miramax, even though Mallrats came out through Universal, but we felt the writing was on the wall. And there was a guy, John Gordon, who we worked with there. He was I got to say the name, so clench your assholes, Harvey Weinstein. John Gordon was Harvey's assistant. He was the one that was like, Harvey, you got to watch this fucking movie and stuff. So we showed John, like when we were done with Mallrats, we were like, come watch the fucking cut of this movie and shit. He's like, this is fucking great, man. He's going, why are you making movies at Universal? You got to come back to Miramax and set up an overall deal there. And we were like, what do you mean? He's like, you can just make it your first look stop and hang your shingle is what they call it. And fucking like they give you money to run your office and then whatever you do first, it comes through here and shit. So I was like, oh, that's all right, fucking yeah. He was like, be with your family, man. I'm like, fucking, we made Clerks with you. Or you made Clerks, but we bought it and shit. Like, you're over at Universal. He said, come back, make stuff with us. So we signed that deal, and so the next thing I was going to do was definitely going to be Miramax, so I knew I had a home for it. So I handed in the Chasing Amy script, and we told them that, you know, we had a budget for it, $3 million, and I said, this is the cast. It's the cast that you've seen. And we got called in for a meeting at Miramax, and it was a meeting that shaped the rest of my fucking career. I've told the story a zillion fucking times. Meryl Poster was the exec. Generally, I never say her name, but the last 10 years of my fucking wonderful person, nothing wrong with her, but this was a moment. So Meryl Poster is like the creative executive of the company, and she read the script. Mark Tusk read the script, John read the script, and John and Mark were like, this is a special movie, we got to do it. And I was like, Kevin, I like your script, but we got to talk about your cast. And I was like, okay. And she was like, who are these people? I was like, they're people I worked with on Mallrats, man. Like Ben was in Mallrats, and he was in Dazed and Confused, so was Joey. And Jason Lee, the first thing he ever did was Mallrats and stuff. And she's like, yeah, but we can definitely make this movie for $3 million, but we have cast that we would like to include. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, we got holding deals with people, and they'd be great for this movie. It's a great script. And I was like who? So their idea for casting Chasing Amy was Drew Barrymore as Alyssa Jones, David Schwimmer as Banky, and a young, beautiful pre-Daily Show Jon Stewart as Holden McNeil. So I was like, I don't want to fucking make, that's not the movie I want to make. And Meryl Poster said to me, Kevin, the movie business is not about making movies with your friends. Like, that was her real come to Jesus moment. And in my head, I was like, well, I'm going to spend the rest of my career just doing that. And I went in another direction. And Chasing Amy works for that reason. You know, I just got off a movie with my friend Logic made a movie. And he wrote parts for people he knows who've never acted before. But it was the right decision. And he could cast like fucking big names and shit like that. But instead, he wanted to bet on the people he knew. And I met the guy, his second lead in the movie, he told me when he was telling me the story, he's like, it's going to be my buddy, Tremaine. And before I could say a word, he goes, he's my Jay. And instantly I understood that. I was like, oh, you found a fucking treasure. And you're about to expose it to the world. And everyone's going to think you're smart, even though he's the genius. I've been there. I know this. So it's, casting is everything and whatnot. And the movie was written with very specific people in mind. So instead of making the movie for $3 million, we made the movie for $250,000. The deal was we could do whatever we wanted for $250,000. If the movie was good and Miramax wanted to keep it, they would keep it. If they didn't like it, we had the rights to go sell it and make the money back and pay them back and shit. And it worked out. Like, they liked it. And the rest kind of unfolded very nicely. Does that answer the question? Yeah. Yes, Ken.
In the bar scene, we have Alyssa talking about events that had happened in Mallrats, spending, and then Clerks. Mentions Julie Dwyer, which actually does both, tying them together. And she also mentions someone who had sex with a dead man, which would have been Caitlin.
Yeah.
He's in a mental hospital or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever happened. Did she get out? Because obviously she probably got out.
Caitlin
I
Brady?
don't think she was ever mentioned in any film.
She's not, well, let me see. Caitlin carries over in the Clerks cartoon. Lisa did a voice in one of the episodes of the cartoon, I think episode 6. And then the only other reference to her was the Clerks Christmas special comic book, which was kind of an ignominious ending. But where she is in the real continuity, like if I had to write and finish, the fucking Bible entry for Caitlin Brady, well, she got out of the metal. We all do. But what did she? She went in. She went religious, hardcore religious. Not conservative, not shitty. She very much believes in
Not
Jesus.
like Red State.
Yes, yeah. She no guns and shit, but she believes in Jesus and true faith. Not this kind of like I'm using my faith to fucking tell you not to fuck people and shit. Like she actually believes in the Lord and shit. It's almost kind of sweet. But it's fucked up knowing the shit she's done.
Was she working on the Catholicism WoW campaign?
She probably did. Yeah, she might have been known. Yes.
So I actually performed Chasing Amy in high school as a one-woman show.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I got to nationals with it.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I cut
You'll be
out a
hearing
lot
from
of
my
the
lawyer.
swear.
So as a one-woman show?
Yeah, basically I had to do different voices and poses for all the different characters and cut out a lot of the swearing because it was high school in Texas. But
What part of Texas?
Austin. So it's
Yeah.
But I picked it because so much of the experience that the characters go through of finding your sexuality and figuring out how to talk about being gay was so personal to me. How did y'all incorporate so many of these different experiences in there? Because a lot of what these characters talk about are things that, like, I heard my friends say, or things that I experienced myself.
When we were kids, you started having those conversations in your 20s. The age has just gotten younger, so by the time it comes around your generation, people are having these same conversations and confronting those feelings way earlier, which is a lot healthier. But for us, that was just generally, particularly for me, as somebody who was raised in the same house until I was 23. I didn't move out of my parents' house, and I lived under my parents' pretty strict laws and rules and shit like that. Their house, so you fucking did what they wanted. When Clerks happened, suddenly I was like, I'm a grown-up. I can do whatever I want. And so what I wanted was to sit around with my friends and fucking talk, real talk, and have conversations about this, that, the other thing. And of course, sex, because we were all obsessed with it. And it was the preoccupation of our lives. This is before I found art. And the biggest thing I could think to do was have sex. Then I found art. I was like, fuck sex. It's never as satisfying. Like, art fucking rules, man. Coming is great, don't get me wrong, but fucking this is really good. In any event. So I think that's just how we all spoke then. And I've watched the age that those conversations take place get lower and lower as years have gone by. Case in point, I got a kid of my own. She's grown now. She's going to be 25 next week and stuff. I know, can you believe that shit? But when she was like 12, 13, she was getting into identity politics stuff that like we scratched the surface of with Chasing Amy. I'm like, Jesus, it's arriving a lot earlier. Those are the subjects that I found fascinating. I'll be honest with you, still find fascinating today. In a world of anything you could talk about, like relationships, interpersonal dynamics, and sex, like still fascinate me to no end. Whenever I see couples together, and like couples, not like there's a man and a woman, you just can't immediately assume that. But whenever I see any couple together, first thing I think is, that's beautiful, that's love. And the second thing I think is, what do they look like when they fuck? And I'm 53, and I thought that would have gone away, but I'm still like, oh yeah. So that will always be endlessly fascinating to me. And every day is a school day, and so you learn things about yourself, even as old as one gets. So I imagine that will continue to show up in the work. But back then, it was me going like, I've never heard this in a movie before. These are the things I talk about with my friends. I think this would be helpful to others. And also strategically speaking, I was like, this could be marketable because I've never heard people talk about this in the movie. Maybe I found rare breathing again, like I did with Clerks and stuff. Mallrats, not rarefied breathing. That just looked like a studio comedy. But being able to say things that nobody else had said before in the space, that felt like forward momentum, and nobody talked about it. There used to be three things you never fucking talked about in public: sex, religion, and politics. And that's all out the fucking window. I take no credit for politics. I don't know shit about politics. But sex and religion, I did talk about in my movies very openly. And at one point in my career, I was like, maybe I can break the third taboo, but I find politics so fucking boring. So I just stayed with sex and religion. Almost got killed for the religious one.
Luckily, you had the script published. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do anything with it.
I'm so glad you got that book. I remember when they published that book, man. It made me feel like legit. I was like, oh shit, they published my screenplays. I must be a writer. Yes.